Hi, this is Taylor Otwell back with another Laravel screencast. In this screencast I want to take a look at controllers in Laravel 4. So as you can see, I've got a install of Laravel version 4 ready to go. And I want to show you some of the new controller stuff you can do in Laravel 4. So let's jump right in. First, let's make a basic controller route. If you look at the Laravel install, you'll see in controllers you have a home controller out of the box, similar to Laravel 3, which just returns the default hello world view for now. And let's go ahead and make a route to that. So we'll route this to route get controller, and we're going to tell it to use home controller, and the method is show welcome. There's no preset conventions on method names or controller naming conventions in Laravel 4. You're free to organize your controllers however you want, using namespaces, folders, whatever you want to do. So we've got our route in place. This should call our home controller show welcome method. And let's go ahead and hit this in the browser, make sure we still get the view we would expect. So we're going to hit /controller. Alright, and we do get our hello world view, so this is working correctly and looks good. Now, one of the new features in Laravel 4 is RESTful controllers, or resourceful controllers, excuse me. And resourceful controllers are something that's been available in other frameworks like Ruby on Rails, and are a really nice way to organize your application around resources and the REST idea of web. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. First, I want to generate a simple resourceful controller, and we can do that using the much improved artisan command line. So if we go to our artisan command line, let's go ahead and take a look at what commands are available. There's a new PHP artisan list command, which will show you a nice output of all of our available command line commands. And we can see right here we have a controller make, and it says create a new resourceful controller. Now let's go ahead and do PHP artisan help controller make, and we get a nice, let me clear this so you can see this a little better. We get a nice output of what this command can do. It lists all the options and the arguments. Now for this demonstration I'm just going to show a small controller, so I'm not going to make every method. I'll show that at the end to show you what it looks like. But let's go ahead and say PHP artisan controller make foo controller, and now I'm going to say only give me the index and the show methods. Okay, so our controller was created successfully. Let's take a look at this foo controller. You can see that it has an index method, and there's our show method passing in an ID. Okay, this is great, but how do we route to this? And we can do that using the new resource method on the route class. So let's go back to our routes file. I'm going to get rid of this sample route, and I'm going to add route resource. We're going to call our resource foo, and we're going to say that that resource is handled by the foo controller. Now we also need to say that it only handles the index, whoops, let me do my array, the index and the show methods. Okay, so this is going to define a new resource route. Okay, and I'll come back and explain what this does behind the scenes in a second, but let's just take a look at how it works. Okay, with our route in place, I'm going to come in here and just put some dummy output. So we'll say return foo index here, and how about return showing foo, and then pass back the ID so we can see what's passed in there. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Let's check our route, looks pretty good. So what we should be able to do is hit /foo and get the index, and then we should be able to hit /foo/ any number or wildcard and get the show method. So let's take a look and I'll demonstrate what that looks like. Okay, so in our browser, let's hit /foo here. Okay, so there's our foo index as we would expect. Now let's do foo/1, and we're showing foo1. See how this makes building these routes a lot easier? In Laravel 3, this foo/1 would actually try to call the one method on the controller. Now in Laravel 4, it's much easier to set up these resourceful type routes and build a great application or an API. Okay, so there's an intro to resourceful routes. Let me show you a full resourceful controller so you can see every method, even though I'm not going to manually hit each of them in the application. Let's go ahead and make another controller here. Artisan controller make. We'll call this bar controller, and I'm not going to specify any further options. I'm just going to let it do every method and see what we get. Okay, so this was created successfully. Now you can see as I go down here through here, I don't know if you can count them, but I believe there's actually 7 methods. The index method is going to be, if your resource is foo, that's going to handle a get/foo URI. Then you have your create, which is responsible for showing the form. I believe this is foo/create, get foo/create. This will show the form for creating a new resource, be it a user or an order. It also generates the store method, which is going to handle post/foo. Okay, so this is going to handle storing something like a new user. We have the show, which we saw previously. This handles get/foo/some wildcard ID. This is for showing something like a user. Then moving on, we have edit. So this is, a lot of times if you're building an application, you have the ability to edit an existing user. This responds to get/foo/wildcard ID/edit. And this is responsible for showing that form, for editing the given resource. You have update, which is the counterpart to the edit, which will handle put/foo/wildcard ID. That will handle your user updates, your resource updates. And then finally you have destroy, which will handle delete/foo/wildcard ID. So you can see that this generates a lot of stuff for you, a lot of boilerplate code. And all I have to do to route to this is do something like route resource user is handled by my bar controller, and we are done. It will generate all 7 of those routes for us, and we don't have to do any more boilerplate code. So you can see this is a beautiful way to set up APIs and to set up applications. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of that this sample here, my bar controller. Okay, so back to foo controller. I wanted to show you a little bit on controller filters because there's been some improvements here. Okay, first let me make a constructor. Okay, so the typical way of setting up filters in Laravel 3 would be do something like this, filter before foo, something like that. And that really works pretty much the same, except it's now a before filter, and just so you don't have to specify the string before. So we can say this before filter foo to attach that filter to each of the methods in our controller. Okay, let's go ahead and go back and make that route filter here. I'm just going to go put it right here. Let's just have that route filter return filtered. Okay, so we've got our filter defined. We've got our filter defined or attached here in the controller constructor. Let's go ahead and call any of the foo methods and see what we get. Okay, so we do get filtered on our show method and on our index method. So this is attaching to both methods. I believe you can do only, let me see, index here. So let's see if that attaches it to only the index. Okay, so it is attached to the index still, and it's not attached to our show, so that works as expected. Okay, so that's essentially like Laravel 3. That's how you've been doing filters on controllers. There's also an after filter method, so this is all the same. Now what is new is the ability to do something like this, which some people have requested for a while, is to pass a callback in line without even specifying a filter name or defining it somewhere else. So let's go ahead and get rid of this filter. Now I'm just specifying my before filter right in line with a closure callback. Okay, so this should return filter callback from both of these methods. So let's go ahead and hit one of them. Okay, so there's our filter callback on the show, filter callback on the index. So this is a handy way if you just have like a one-off filter that's not going to apply to any other controllers. You can just specify it right in line. You don't have to put it in your filter file or anything. Okay, so that's one new way to do filters. Now another way to do filters, which might be a little controversial, but you're not forced to do it this way. This is just another way to do it. Let's go ahead and get rid of this altogether. Laravel allows you to specify filters in the annotations of your methods, or the doc blocks of your methods. So above this index method, I could say before run foo. So this attaches the foo filter just to the index method. I'm going to come back in here. Let me get my foo filter back right there. Okay, so there it is. Now if I call the index, I'm attaching the foo filter to it to run before. So we should get filtered on the index, no filter on the show. Let's take a look at that. Okay, we're back to having the filter on the index, looks good, and no filter on the show. So you can see this annotation is just another option, another tool you have to specify filters on controllers. This may be your style, it might not. You're free to use this or to use the typical controller constructor way of specifying filters. Now another thing you can do is specify the annotation at the class level. So this would, before run foo, this would attach it to all methods in the class, and it's just an easy way to attach something to everything from the class level here without a constructor. So let's test that out. We should get the filter on both. There it is on the show, and there it is on the index. So this annotation filter applied to both of them nicely, and it's just another tool in your kit for Laravel controllers. Okay, so I think that's a good demonstration of some of the new controller features. You saw resourceful routing, some of the new filter callback inline stuff, some of the new artisan controller generation stuff, and annotation filters. So tomorrow what I want to look at is a deep look into the Laravel 4 IOC container, which really is going to drive a lot of your Laravel 4 development. It involves some cool stuff you can do with controller dependency injection, with unit testing. So tomorrow we'll dig into the IOC container hardcore, because that's going to be important in your learning of Laravel 4. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow.